Okay, good evening. Welcome to the October 19th, 2017 regular meeting of the Granada Community Services District. And so may we have we had a closed meeting and we have...
No reportable action.
Thank you, gentlemen. Okay. And may we have a roll call, please? Roll call.
President Jim Blanchard.
Here.
Vice President Leonard Warren.
Present.
And Director Nancy Clark.
Here.
Director Barbara Guy.
Here.
And Director David Seaton.
Here.
Also at the table is General Manager Chuck Duffy and District Council Jonathan Wimper and Billy Comito, the Assistant General Manager.
Okay, thank you. And do we have anybody from the public that wants to speak about something other? Okay, so we just go right into item one. Well, what do you want to say? Okay, sure.
It's that time of year, the quarterly local drop-off recycling event, Saturday, October 28th, from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. It's on the district's property on the Burnham Strip at the foot of Avenue Portola on Obispo Road. And as I always say, this is for items that you would otherwise have to drive up and drop off at the recycle yard in Pacifica. So 4 times a year they come here instead.
I'd like to speak to that for a minute.
Okay.
Well, and then let's point out that we have the manager of
That's
the
why I
company
was
in the
going to
audience.
speak to it. The manager is here for Recology, and I was thinking,
Fran, excuse me.
Oh, I'm Fran
We know who
Fowler.
you are, thank you.
El
Go
Granada,
ahead. Thank you.
and
By the way, Fran, you know that we have an agenda item regarding contract renewal.
yeah, but this is concerning what you just said. I was wondering, could you have them come to us on the last weekend of the month instead of, because by the time, when you announce it, nobody hears it until that morning.
Well, it's the 4th Saturday of the quarter, and depending on what day of the week the month starts on, it's either
Well, then maybe the
it's either
first-
2 days later or 9
First
days
week
later.
of the next month or something, rather than that Saturday of the meeting. That was all I wanted to say, if that's possible.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Next Saturday?
October 28th.
October, okay. Also,
That's the
okay.
fall.
Thank you. So we're ready to start item one?
So just another open call. I was just gonna say, because we haven't met since then, we had the Parks Committee meeting, and the room was double booked, so there's like, at least 50, 60 people that showed up, ended up having to move to the hotel. Not as many people were able to make it over, but still the people that were there were, there was a good group of people in terms of like some experts that have built pump tracks and some other issues that we've talked about, and so.
We've got a section for committee reports.
Okay.
Yeah,
On here,
okay,
so
okay, okay.
I could
Give a
address
review of
that.
that.
Okay,
then, yeah.
good, okay.
Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, thanks. Okay, so now we go into item one, which is consideration of committee recommendations regarding the natural resource management plan and other possible projects on the Burnham Strip parcel.
Somebody from RCD is supposed to be.
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
right here,
I
yes.
was expecting to see Kellex.
No.
So at our last,
Okay.
at our last meeting, your board appointed an ad hoc committee of Barbara and Leonard to meet with the RCD and discuss park plans for the Burnham Strip. So with that, I will turn it over to you two to give us an update on your committee meeting, who you've talked to, and what's happened.
Want me to do it?
I'm not that good at meeting reports,
Okay.
so I'll chime in here and there.
Well, Leonard and I have met 3 times to talk about this. We held a meeting with Joe Issel, who's here from the Resource Conservation District. Also there were Kellex Nelson, the Executive Director, and Cleopatra Tude, the Conservation Program Coordinator, who is the botanist, and Joe is the project manager for the work they've done so far. So we spent quite a while talking about the various projects that could be done on the Burnham Strip, the ones that were in their proposal, their resource management plan, and some other options. And
After quite a bit of discussion about pros and cons of various projects, we agreed that the priority project and one that we would recommend, that Leonard and I are recommending that we go ahead with, is to do invasive plant removal on the 4 acres that are not the riparian areas and not the compacted area, and then do some hydroseeding so that there will improve the vegetation on the property. We'll get rid of a lot of the invasives, which is a request that the board had received from the Midcoast Community Council, and that the hydroseeding will provide an attractive surface when it comes up without precluding any other options on the parcel. So we're not doing anything permanent except for getting rid of bad plants and replacing them for either a short term or maybe even a longer term with some beautiful native plants, which I think will have more wildflowers perhaps than a standard revegetation mix, so it will look nice. But right now, what we're looking at is a recommendation to approve tonight $5,000 for them to put together a management plan for this project, and then to go out and get specific bids for the project, which they estimate will be in the range of around $25,000 to implement the project. So,
Thank you.
let me just add that we also spent quite a while talking about the riparian area and a potential project there, which we are not asking for action on tonight, but just to report to you. There is great potential to do some really significant work with the riparian area to improve the quality of the flow, improve the vegetation, and it's potentially very likely possible that it could be funded either as a mitigation project for, say, a fine, or a project for an agency that needs mitigation for some kind of impacts. So
Typically Caltrans.
yes, and so there, I think as part of this $5,000, it will only be a minor part, but in the process of looking at the the invasive plant removal project, I think they'll be thinking at least, and if they have the opportunity to discuss it in a meeting perhaps, talking about this next project that we might undertake. And again, that project would not preclude any reuse of the open areas for a park. So, and Leonard and I have talked a little about the park project, and we'll have a report back for this board at the next meeting on that.
Okay. Thank you, Barbara. Any other you want to add,
Well,
Leonard?
regarding the big riparian area, one of the things that we touched on was that RCD indicates that there's a lot of eucalyptus, and what was the other big tree that's in?
Acacia?
Acacia. I didn't realize that either one of those are there. When I look at it, all I see is the willows, but it's my feeling that the whole ecosystem there would be dramatically improved by taking out the ukes and I guess the acacias, because ukes at least suck up a lot of water, and so without the ukes there, there'd be a lot more water available for the ecosystem. And another thing that we discussed that this board should give serious consideration to is undergrounding the utilities on the edge of the property. And if we're going to do that, we should probably do that before we go out and get bids for taking out the big invasive trees, because the wires there are going to make it very difficult and more expensive to take out the trees without accidentally pulling down the wires.
And that's why we need more information, so we agreed to defer that project for a
Right.
future meeting. But it's
Thank you.
one that we've talked to the Resource Conservation District about quite a bit about, and if there is a park project, which we want to bring back to the next meeting, we will have their advice about that as well.
Now, Jonathan, if we enter into this agreement, there's no agreement here, but would you like us to enter into an agreement, and looking further down the road, I can't remember, you and I talked about this, or would it be better to set something up where we could use them as an as-needed resource, that kind of agreement, or?
Well,
I can speak to that.
I would like to know how
Yes,
they
could we-
normally do it.
Yeah.
can you,
But I think
Could
there
we
needs
ask
to be
Joe to come
an
and-
agreement
yeah.
of some kind.
the microphone is to make sure people watching this
Yeah,
on
that's
video
right.
later will hear you.
And do you
Yeah.
have a handout? Did you want to?
Well, yeah, so,
Please, yeah, just, okay. would you please
Joe
introduce-
Issel with the
Thank-
San
appreciate-
Mateo County
appreciate it. Thanks very
Resource
much. Cheers.
Conservation District.
Cheers, thanks.
So there was a proposal that was submitted for
we have it.
this. I just want to make sure everyone got that. I got a copy here if you need it.
It's in our,
Wonderful. I wanted to make a correction about it. So it identifies a 4-acre area.
How
which
do we
is-
find the right page?
It's
Got
page
a lot of
3.
paper here,
I numbered it for you this time.
but we do have a lot of paper.
Oh, of the packet?
Is-
I
is-
can't say.
What's the title?
Section
it's
one.
page 3.
Section one.
Of the
Section
proposal?
one.
Section one,
Section
page
one.
3, the third is
Page
page 3.
three.
We're looking at the map.
There you go, that's it.
Okay, the question is how many
So
page
what's the
threes are
correction?
there?
It's total 3 pages. When we had talked at our meeting, we wanted to include the Caltrans area in this, so
Yes.
we will be doing that. I want to make sure that you guys are aware of that.
Good. That was one of my questions.
Yeah, okay, good. We're gonna be including that. And to speak to what you just mentioned about future work, I brought a copy of our memorandum of understanding that Kellex helped draft. And, we talked.
It's in our packet. We
Okay,
have it.
Okay, so that infrastructure is already there too.
But we still need an agreement for this work.
Well, let's,
Yeah, we're
let's back
gonna
up,
put
let's back
together
up
an
a quarter of a
as-needed.
step here. What RCD would prefer is that we have a single blanket contract that we add specific projects to as they come up, rather than doing a whole new contract every time.
It sounds like an as-needed contract.
I have one more question, so maybe it's
There you
down
go.
there.
Certainly.
Sounds good to me.
I haven't heard that term before, but
Yeah, they use it all the time. Basically, you open up a contract and you assign tasks to it.
now, what is your feeling on the management costs here? On a percentage basis, they look kind of high to me, but what do you think?
I honestly have no feeling on that because this is a specific project and you can't always, like saying the design cost for a big sewer project is 6% of the project. Well, that varies depending on what you're doing, so.
Well, I'm not looking just at the first one, but there were a number of things here with estimated management costs.
I can't give you any input on that, quite honestly. We don't do a lot of these, so.
I think this would be getting us started on a series of projects, and I do think they'd be starting to work to some extent on the second project in the process of doing this first project, just getting to know the site and discussing, just the parameters of this project are gonna affect future projects.
Yeah, we intend to bring out one consultant, and when they're out there, to talk about the next phases while we have them out. And try and do some of that initial scoping that we're requesting the funds for right now on that second phase, so we can give you guys a better sense of what the cost will be. Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is a nice step in getting all the stuff, Leonard, you're always discussing, we need to get things going.
Gonna
This
do
gets
something.
things going,
Yes.
right?
So, in that line, if we approve going forward tonight, when would you expect actual on-the-ground work? Could it be to the point of doing the hydro seeding by the rainy season? Yeah.
I have to
Yeah.
ask Cleo, who
Patience is not only
our
fault.
botanist, about when the best time to do this. But typically, we do planting in the fall, so I would think that
But
would
you're not
be-
planting, you're hydro seeding.
No, we could. A lot of times we'll do hydro seeding in the fall after we complete a project that's taken all summer or that we've started in the late summer and early fall, and we'll winterize it, which includes hydro seeding. It's already starting to rain right now. It's pretty late in the season, so we'll see.
But you're gonna have to come back to us with a second contract with
Yes.
with
With the bid, with the proposal.
the company that's
with the-
actually gonna do the work.
Yes, yes.
So the $5,000 is management fee, and I agree it's a high percentage of the potential contract if it's at 25,000, but that's what they're asking for.
We've got to reach out to Caltrans. We don't know how long that's gonna take to get them on board with the project.
20 years.
We got the time to bring out the consultant and work out not just the initial removal, but long-term maintenance until there's a project or proposal with the future parklands. We want to protect the initial investment in invasive plant removal, so we need to come up with a strategy to keep knocking back those plants, which are going to come back. And, yeah.
I mean, $5,000 at $125, $150 an hour, which is consultant rate, what is that, 35, 40 hours, it's not, you know, yeah, my
So
engineering
at this
group
point,
can
you're not
handle that
thinking
for less.
temporary irrigation?
I can't say.
Because that's what you're gonna do next, is come back with specifics for us.
Yeah, we're gonna
By
come
the
back,
next meeting.
we're gonna come back with a proposal that'll probably include a few different alternatives,
By our next meeting, right?
hopefully.
Okay.
Hopefully, yeah, we're wrapping up. Cleo's gonna be more available, so I do think that we should be able to do that. We've already had initial conversations with the company, the contractor, so, hopefully we won't spend all this money. We've got lots of work to do, and, won't spend it if we don't need it.
So would you be bringing back also your standard form, sort of as-needed contract or your overall contract as well?
So with the first agreement, GCSD provided us with the contract.
Right, we can provide you one for that, but I would like to see what you normally do, so we can see if it'll work for us.
Yeah, we have examples where we've provided contracts to other folks, and we can certainly work on providing you with a template.
Stick for item 3 and get to see how our council rewrites contracts.
Yeah,
So,
it took a while.
so looking at some kind of motion, Jonathan, then would the motion be to approve entering this management contract for $5,000, subject to an agreement accepted for ourselves and the RCD?
That's what I would say, unless the board wants that back.
So moved.
Yeah.
Second.
Yeah.
I'm
I mean,
fine with
Okay.
my thoughts are I'm okay with the higher upfront costs, because I think naturally any project has, the reach out to Caltrans and all those are gonna, once that happens, I think down the road, they should be more reasonable, because all those relationships are established, some of the basic research and, stuff has been done, so I feel like,
Our
naturally,
RCD has a
there's
good working relationship with
yeah,
Caltrans.
Yeah, we'll figure this out.
Yeah.
It's too public.
so,
Yeah.
so naturally, I think, and yeah, I mean, I think, regardless of the contract structure, I think the nature of this is each one is gonna be renegotiated to a certain extent. It's just a matter of, as far as the price and, whatever, what contractors we wanna reach out with. If we wanna get a second or third bid, if we're not happy with it, all those, I think it's more of those details will be in that contract saying that, we have the right to seek out other bids and all that, so that when those situations come up, we've already agreed to those things. So.
Now, to be
yeah.
clear, our contract for the company that's gonna do the work, they're gonna have the contract with that company. We're gonna pay them.
So, yeah, but just before we approved it, if we wanna
Right,
seek out other
absolutely.
bids and all that, that we'll have that right to, to make those decisions before any payments get made.
Thank you. Any
So
more
Bob-
discussion?
Did someone second?
Yeah, they did. Barbara second. Barbara second.
Oh, she moved.
Barbara-
I
oh,
did.
she
I
moved.
made the motion, Leonard seconded.
That's all right, very good. We aren't,
No,
okay.
I bet I know what Chris is gonna bring up.
Recology's
We-
philosophy is to immerse ourselves in the company, in the areas that we do business, as you all know. So we will donate the $5,000
Wow.
Right.
for this.
Super.
And to all the ratepayers out there, any donations that we make are not part of the rates. They come out
Oh.
of corporate Recology. There's no line item for donations. So this is an environmental issue that we will be happy to be involved in.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you. Very kind, very generous.
Right.
Okay, any more discussion?
Well, I had a question. Joe, first you said we are going to do the Caltrans parts, and then you said we have to get Caltrans on board on this.
Yeah.
Have they been approached, or?
They have not been approached yet. In this proposal, it outlines an area that excludes the Caltrans part. So with this $5,000 to build that project proposal for you guys, which includes a bid from the contractor, will include outreach to Caltrans to get them on board with the project before we have a final, our bid from our contractor is gonna include that Caltrans area, and we'll have a per acre cost and a fixed rate cost for coming out there and mobilization. So when I say it will be included, what will be included is outreach to them. I obviously can't guarantee they're gonna participate, but I don't see why they would allow us to do work on their behalf.
I've had occasion to work with Caltrans District 4 over in Oakland numerous times over the last many years, actually. And moving fast is not what they do.
Yeah,
So, yeah, I think we're looking at.
we could be doing a
next
phased
spring,
project.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Now, to clarify the extent, your map here, I guess, is from much earlier this year, before we acquired the last piece between our older property and the preschool.
okay.
So,
We did talk about it at that meeting, and I guess I was still confused about which piece got added.
well,
So it's,
let's see if I orient the map. So if north is in fact straight up, it's essentially west-northwest of Field 1.
It goes all the way to the fence.
yeah, that's fine.
And so that's another 83,000 square feet, or not 83,000, another 0.83 acres, which is 37,000 square feet. Now,
Noted.
should the map of this project area on the line on the highway side, would that line, when you actually get to having the work done, be much closer to the highway off of our property?
Yeah, we propose going all the way to the highway.
Okay.
And including, we talked about it, including that extra parcel that goes up to the daycare
Right,
center.
right.
Yeah,
So to be really clear, the approval we just did is for Field 1 and Field 2.
and in that perimeter around the compacted area, because there are some plants that we want to target there.
Okay? Sounds good.
I doubt we would do hydro seeding.
Right.
But we're gonna be removing those plants in non-riparian areas around the compacted area.
Well, and you'll work with the committee as you go along.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, to speak to your point about contractors, we're not gonna contract with the contractor if we get to that point without.
Coming back.
That's
without
part two.
coming back to it.
Right.
Yeah,
But we're hoping you will have something back to us next month.
that's our intention.
I get the feeling you want something next
I
month.
want this to happen.
There you go.
Yeah, you wanna go. This is the project to get us going, for
Yes.
sure.
So we have any more?
Aside from the fact that I'm always in a hurry to get everything done, it would be really nice if if it's far enough along that the hydro seeding could rely largely on, hopefully it'll rain this year.
Right. That's,
The streets were sort of, kind of almost wet when I drove here at 6:30.
yeah, we might have our first flush event tonight.
Tonight?
Yes.
Wow.
It might happen. So pick up your pet waste before.
Okay, there you go, okay.
Close it to the-
Yeah,
Okay,
but
thanks very
the-
much,
The video of
appreciate
this
it.
doesn't run until
Sure.
Saturday typically.
Okay, so we have, do you want to vote, ready to vote?
Yeah, we got-
Okay,
I want to say
oh,
something.
yes, ma'am.
Fran Pollard again. Well, are you going to make a decision tonight on an agreement and everything? We haven't seen anything and don't know what the plants look like. Do you have pictures of them?
No, 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 this is just to have them make the plan, and it's coming back
Have
next
what?
month. They're gonna do the plan and bring it back next month. We're paying them to make a plan, to answer all your
Oh,
questions.
Yeah, this isn't doing any of the work, so they're gonna put together a
So we
plan.
have some input
You can
with
have
it,
some, yes.
and we get to have a park in all this too? It's not going to be full of plants?
Right, one of the principles that we established very clearly is nothing that we're gonna have RCD do will preclude use of the land as a park.
Okay, and I was talking to Chris, the manager of Recology, and she told me that they're also willing to donate dirt and compost.
Well, dirt is dirt or not. What we probably need is topsoil, which is not
Well,
just
we're going to need
dirt.
compost too, so that's good too.
Compost, I hadn't thought of that.
All right, so, and any plants, we hope, are not going to be tall plants that'll block the view.
No.
Because that's the whole point of the Burnham Strip, is to be able to have the ocean view. Okay?
For the.
You'll have a
Again,
chance
you'll
to
see the plan.
review. You'll see
So
the plan
They're
list.
not putting anything in stone here.
Are-
Thank you.
No,
That was definitely,
Get that in.
Okay,
That was
thank you.
Joe, are you able to name the expected replacement native plants that you believe the district will propose?
It'll be a grass and forb mix.
Well, what I'm thinking of is if you can name the plants, then people
Not
can
right
go
now.
off and find
That's
pictures.
why we
Will that be
hired
part of the plan?
Cleopatra. Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Yeah.
We will provide a plant list in our proposed
Okay.
planting.
Okay,
We gotta pay him
What we
first.
have here now
Okay,
are
sounds good.
are annual
Okay.
grasses, and they're
Okay.
talking about perennial grasses,
Right.
which are native to California.
Okay,
and
good.
some wildflowers.
okay. So now are we ready to vote? Any more discussion? Okay, so all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? It's unanimous. Okay, thank you very much, Joe. Appreciate it very
I
much.
have a question for staff. Any update on the research into the two possible water sources?
No, we had talked about that.
I think it's
and-
mentioned somewhere in this agenda item packet.
Yeah, we've got to hire someone to go do that, Leonard. We don't have the expertise in-house. Did we talk about that on our conference call? I can't remember. I thought we did. You may mix it up with what I talked
Well,
with Billy about, but we're going to look to hire someone who does this because,
Can I suggest that maybe the first step to be done as soon as possible is for,
well, because it all ties into this and
but
that's why when
it-
Delia and I
maybe Delia can just call the county and ask them to email the well information from the test wells that were done on the
Well, I
last
actually
property
talked to
acquired.
my hydro group, and they told me who to contact at the county, and we're also gonna call the two water districts to find out if they've got any
Well,
well
If
people.
if using well water is viable, I think that's a much better
Absolutely.
approach politically for us and probably end up being cheaper in the long run. But, you know, since the previous owner of that last piece, was still forging ahead, with his house application after he did the test wells, one would assume that at least one of the test wells was good, and so the county should have some information in the file for that APN.
I'll give a call over there and see.
Okay, find out. Thank you. So we're now ready for item 2? Okay. This is item 2, approval of Parks and Recreation Property Tax Transfer Agreement with the City of Half Moon Bay.
Okay, as I point out in my memo, this agreement was part of the LAFCO approval process when we became a community services district. We had taken this agreement to obviously the final step in Half Moon Bay's opinion, and ours. This was brought in front of your board in January of 2014. I thought we had approved it, Jonathan thought we had approved it. We looked for the records of it and could not find a formal approval from your board, so this is kind of cleaning up loose ends. So the basic premise is, it gets a little bit complicated, but we've got that overlap area where our district extends into the part of northern Half Moon Bay.
No, Half Moon Bay extends into our district. Who was here first? We were here first.
Absolutely.
Moving ahead.
I stand corrected, so. So those you-know-whats from Half Moon Bay approached into our district. And at any rate, we've got an overlap there where we provide sewer service, but as part of our LAFCO approval process, our parks and recreation powers do not extend to Half Moon Bay because the city of Half Moon Bay provides service to their residents within their city boundaries. So to make it equitable, since we do indeed collect some property tax from those people in that overlap area, we struck an agreement with Half Moon Bay which said whatever percent of the property tax we collect in any given year, in my example I used $500,000 or something near that, and 18% of that comes from that overlap area, we will refund that money or transfer it, if you will, to the city of Half Moon Bay. So it makes us all even and clear. So we did not get final board approval. We got a board approval in concept in January of 2014. This just cleans that up and gets final approval, and then the lawyers have worked out a signature pattern that will get this signed and put in place, and we will,
So haven't you been paying the money?
no, we've not been paying money, so we will make this true up from October 2014 and become a CSD. It's not a lot of money. The first 2 years, the biggest item was the $180,000 we purchased Imping for. So we'll be giving them approximately 18%. We'll do a recalculation every year on what percentage of property tax does come from that overlap area. So,
Do we need discussion or not?
I'd just like to add that for any motion of approval of this, that you include that the board is making it effective January 21st, 2014.
Okay. Do this for
I'd move approval of the,
14, go ahead, sorry.
not October 1st?
no, the property tax doesn't start till October, but the agreement would have been signed in January 2014.
But the
We didn't
transfer.
have Parks power until,
But the transfer would only be
October.
effective.
right, so we couldn't have
Right.
expended any money on Parks up till then.
So you're saying that,
The agreement is effective, but there's no money that would.
Effectively, it
have
wouldn't,
been
yeah.
Obligated.
okay, I move approval of the Parks and Rec Services funding agreement with the city of Half Moon Bay, to be made effective, January 21st, 2014.
I'll second.
Second? Any more discussion? Okay, so ready to, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for taking care of that and cleaning up our
I
business.
think those are the two originals.
Okay.
My signatures.
Okay, now we're on to item 3. Consideration of County of San Mateo permit agreement for medians and plazas.
All right, Jonathan, you want to take this?
Yeah, so the board has an updated draft that included both the county's comments on the medians permit, just the county's comments, okay? And since that time, we have managed to exchange emails and actually finally have a phone call with the county council and the real property division, and I think we have resolved as many issues as we can, and I recommend that we go forward with it. So let me just tell you what we did agree upon. First of all, the county council and I reached agreement on the indemnification language, which is what Chuck was most concerned about, and so was I. So that's, so have you distributed, well, I know you distributed the email.
That's all they've got.
Yeah, so we got our language on that's in the email.
So can I?
So cross out the bottom and
Right.
it's the top one, okay?
And we can, this has actually been negotiated right up till the time of this meeting. So we'll-
Yesterday.
Yeah,
Okay.
we'll circulate what we've got yesterday.
So the county's original language, basically, the way I interpreted it first glance was that they were foisting all of the liability onto us regardless of whether it had anything to do with what we're doing there. So the question is, do you have that turned around so that it's very specifically only things, the liability is only for things that we did? You understand what I'm getting at in that
I
question?
do. I don't think it's worded quite the way you're saying it, and I don't think we're gonna get it any better than we got. Let me just say that. We made vast improvements to where we were. I'll just say that. And I don't think we can get any further with that.
Because if let me toss out two examples. If a tree branch falls and injures somebody, and of course we had nothing to do with that tree, who's liable for that under this agreement?
Well, as I have indicated in the past, I don't like to answer liability questions in public session.
There you go.
And so I'm going to try to avoid that because, of course, I'm going to say that our district is not liable.
Okay, understood.
But that will be up to a court process.
Well, I'm going to try asking the other one anyway, expecting to get the same answer.
I can answer.
Suppose,
By legalities.
suppose somebody's sitting on a bench that we put 15 feet away from the street, and a car jumps the curb and hits the bench.
They'll sue everybody associated with the project, and we don't
Okay, I
think
forgot
we'll be
about that,
held
that's
liable.
true. Yeah. Okay.
What we're indemnifying for is claims or suits for activities by or on behalf of GCSD pursuant to the permit, performance of any work or services by or on behalf of GSD in the construction, operation, and maintenance of the improvements described in the permit, or any other act or omission by or on behalf of GCSD resulting from the use of the medians and plazas pursuant to this permit.
All right, that sounds like it should be where I would like it to be. Now, of course, I know that you couldn't have found a smaller font size. I'm pretty sure you could have found a bigger one. This is really hard to read.
You don't have a choice.
Chuck made me do it. I'll throw everybody under the bus at once.
Most people would be burned by that. I enjoy it. I did make them do it.
It's also
Because
true
of
to
the
not have to
content.
twist my arm. Now, what happens here is when you, in Word,
Yeah,
if you
I
put
know,
a
but-
comment over there, it shrinks the font.
But if the original font size was bigger, when it shrank it down, the shrunken one would be bigger.
Well, this was going back and forth, like Chuck said.
I'll note that.
There you go.
I have questions.
Can I just,
Barbara's got-
Yeah,
Okay.
go ahead.
let me just finish quickly summarizing the other issues that we brought up. The termination language, we now have agreement that either one of us can get out of this without cause, because they wanted it to be equal language. Okay, then we got the most flexible we could. There was,
Well, one of my questions is about that.
Okay.
If that happens, GCSD has to take everything it's done off the medians and return the medians to their original condition?
that's right. and we have-
Yeah, but realistically, you know the county's not gonna require
So
that.
we had long discussions about this, Barbara, so we made a list of 20 things we didn't like in the agreement, and there were 2 or 3 that were deal breakers, like
I get that,
the
yeah.
indemnity. This one, we just said, okay, we put the swing set out there and they terminate the agreement, you know.
But
Somebody said, "Let 'em
politically,
chase us."
the county's never gonna require us to take out those kind of
Okay.
improvements.
That's ultimately where
All
we
right,
have
that
to get to,
seems-
because as you know, we sent them a revised version. They sent us something early in 2017.
Right.
I know, I
We marked it up,
Yeah.
and it was 6 months before we heard anything back. So that was that one. They had a section they wanted to delete about, well, we wanted to delete their section that said we're subject to the county rules for the parks.
Rules of what?
County rules for the parks, for the
Oh.
medians. And we pointed out to them that we had adopted our own parks ordinance, largely patterned after theirs. So they have agreed now that they can delete that language, that we have to follow their county rules, we're just following our own rules. Then they had some language in there about a partnership, which we have agreed, obviously, neither one of us are partnerships, so that's gone.
I think the original document was a universal contract that they didn't bother to customize well enough.
And that they tend to use with private parties, I think, so that was part of how we persuaded them to change on the indemnification. I mean, we are two governmental agencies, we both have assets, it's, it doesn't need to be one-sided as it was. We have deleted section 30G, which is the, since I have to throw out a little ad, the force majeure clause, all that is saying is if either side, well, we said in our return to them, if either side is prevented from carrying out their duties under this contract by forces beyond their control, then that can be delayed or forgiven until you can actually regain control and be able to comply. What happened here is we just took out that whole section. So the reality, again, is Chuck points out and Leonard pointed out, if something like that happens, like a labor strike or something like that, is one of the examples given, the two public agencies will work it out. It's not going to be something that is a cause for breach of contract.
So the entirety of section 30 is gone from A through P?
No, just G.
Ah, okay. And D?
Sorry about that.
And B? That's about the rules.
Yeah, that's gone. And 30C, little I is gone, except maybe it doesn't even show up in your version. That's the partnership thing.
Okay, so
Okay, and then
there's this
finally
really light blue shading that appears to be the sections that are deleted.
No, if it's deleted,
Well, 30B is,
yeah,
has
well,
light blue.
see, this is before we reached agreement yesterday that 30B is gone, and 30CI is gone. And it doesn't show on yours, because we didn't know this until yesterday.
So the blue shading is stuff that you requested be deleted.
I think the blue shading is things that the county said that they wanted to keep, and some of them we got rid of. Maybe it's your definition, I'm not sure.
Okay, thank you, Jonathan.
Okay, well, actually, there's a couple more things, let me just
Okay.
quickly cover them. So, they had written the default provision to be only one-sided, in other words. It said nothing about what if they defaulted. Yesterday, we got them, at the last minute thing, to agree that it can be mutual, that if, so it's now rewritten to say, it says that the defaulting party and the non-defaulting party, so that can apply whoever is defaulting.
What would be an example of default on the county side?
They come in and start tearing our stuff out, they tell us we can't
Oh.
put something in that is allowed under the contract,
Okay.
et cetera. Okay, then they requested the words improvements covered be removed from section 11. We agreed, and we can't figure out how they got in there, so. And then the last thing was the first two sentences of section 12 are duplicative of section 15, so we agreed to delete that. So that's what is now recommended to the board, basically what you have here plus what I've covered.
Well,
And we do want to try to get to the point that we have authorized its signature so we can get it back to the county. We have agreement right now, let's hold on tight.
I have one issue which I think just about everybody here has heard before, and that is the county has a somewhat ridiculous interpretation of ADA. For example, the one that has a lot of people on the mid-coast very upset, there's a lot of call to build a pedestrian overpass bridge at Gray Whale Cove, and the county says, oh, we can't do it because we can't make it ADA compliant. That is a totally bogus interpretation of ADA. ADA says where feasible. So making the bridge ADA compliant is not feasible. That doesn't mean they can't build the bridge. And so I would like in section 13 the phrase ADA barriers to say ADA non-compliance. One word change, replace barriers with non-compliance.
I'm reluctant to try to do that, given how difficult this has been at this point. We
But
are the ones that.
The county's
have-
gonna cause us no end of grief with that language in there.
No, they're just gonna require us to indemnify them if somebody sues over that. So we're the ones that are gonna decide, are we in compliance? And then we're indemnifying them. If that person is right and we're not in compliance, they can't sue the county.
Okay, so you're sure that this language isn't gonna stop us from doing something because the county declares that there's an ADA barrier?
Right.
And that was actually gonna be my question though, is, because I know we talked about this a little bit, is, so it makes sense if our improvement, you know, that we're responsible for all liability from our improvements and the ADA, you know, of the accessibility of our improvements. But once we have those improvements, that's gonna call into question things that haven't, you know, that, like, for example, just getting up the curb. Is that gonna, the way this is written now, is that gonna be our responsibility, even though everything else we do is ADA, for example? If you can't get up the first initial curb, is that gonna be something that we have to go and make an improvement now to do that? Or is that something that they're gonna have to address as far as, you know?
Let me tag on to his question with a specific example. Suppose we improve the pedestrian paths down the middle of the median strips and we don't put in the wheelchair ramps at the ends. Is
If
the
that's
county?
required by the ADA, and somebody says you have to put it in, we're gonna be responsible for that.
But there's already informal paths there, wouldn't that be the county's responsibility?
Well, what would you do to formalize it?
I mean, it kind of to his point, shouldn't the county already be responsible for all that, everything being ADA? You know, what changes? So if we go and put a community garden in, all of a sudden now that all has to be ADA accessible? At what point does, you know, because right now nothing they have is ADA accessible. So what triggers making something ADA accessible, you know?
Right, the question is, so if we do an improvement on
That's
there,
a-
the
that's the
swing
key
set,
word, the
right,
improvement.
right, so we're doing the improvement on the thing, then.
So any improvement, so even say you put a little, you know, each median has a different theme, and one of the themes is just a little rose garden or whatever. You're gonna have to make that whole median now ADA accessible, or is there, I mean,
Well, that's the
what?
one thing, if you can see the language that is highlighted there, that's what we added. Because it originally started out saying that we had to indemnify them from any ADA barriers present on the medians or plazas on which improvements have been constructed. So the way that's worded, as soon as we construct improvements on a median, we have to remove all barriers to the entire median. We changed it to say barriers to the use or access to improvements installed or constructed by us.
So if we build the swing set, then we should put in ADA ramps to the swing set.
Right.
If we don't, and someone sues because of that, we're on the hook.
We're on the hook, but the county's not.
But
We're
I'm
indemnifying.
primarily
So
concerned
if we don't
about.
do the ADA, we're on the hook, the county's not. That's what they're looking for.
I'm
So we put improvement
But
on
we
it.
don't have to do any other, we don't have to fix the trail.
I'm primarily.
Unless we're the ones that are making a big
Because
trail.
that's not our improvement, that's
Right.
why I said the letter,
Yeah.
how would we formalize that? It's not our trail right now, nor is it the county's, it's just a trail,
So, and that's kind of where it gets interesting, is what's the definition of an improvement? So they have the trail now, what if we just clean it up a little bit? That's an improvement, all of a sudden, technically?
Yeah, you're right, and you start getting to
And
those
then-
areas.
And then I think, you know, same thing in terms of, yes, some, you know, there should be some sections that if that's where the big main, you know, attraction is, then that should be a consideration, spending that money. But other medians where I see is if there's just little themes going on, that's where it would become, you know, that's where I kind of see as, you know, the issue becoming raised again. in terms
My
of-
concern may be pretty close to what you're saying, and that's specifically, I don't want us to have to go around putting in the curb cuts in really silly places just because we did an improvement somewhere on the median. So what I'm talking about, like on you know, let's just pick this one here, is the county might say, oh, you have to put a curb cut here and 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 here, just because we improved the path down there. And anybody putting a curb cut there, that's just a stupid thing to do anyway, because of the way the traffic patterns are.
Well, so in a way, what you just described is what we changed here. In other words, if it's not to access one of our improvements, then it's not covered by this paragraph, right? I mean, the ADA is the ADA, and there's people
Right.
out there that can sue individually,
Yeah,
privately.
like, we all know about the idiot who goes around with the tape measure and says the doorway's a quarter of an inch too narrow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so, all I'm saying is that we have gotten it so you don't have to have access, we don't have to be responsible for access at every little access to the whole median. But we do have to be responsible for access to improvements that we do, so that people go to use those.
And this agreement doesn't compel us to put that access in, it just says.
Right, that's gonna be subject to what are the ADA rules.
Right, and if
The
we
county is
don't,
just- yeah.
if we make a conscious decision not to, then we're responsible, not the county.
That's what this is
Right.
saying, yes. And that's what the county wants to be sure they're indemnified, they're off the hook.
I don't blame them.
Yeah,
Okay.
if we decide not to.
So based on that explanation, I guess I'm okay with this.
Well, actually, given that it's an indemnification provision, it's actually better to stay with barriers, because if you said compliance, so in other words, barriers is a lesser category than compliance.
Well, the reason I said ADA non-compliance is because the ADA has those 5 words in it that are in invisible ink in the county's copy. It's or 2 words rather, it says where feasible. The county's copy just doesn't have the where feasible in it, but I know it's in the federal
So we're
law.
subject to the ADA,
Okay, moving
but
on.
we're not
Okay.
indemnifying for the county's rules, so
Okay.
there's that. I also do want to mention
Sure.
that in terms of the overall indemnification section, the county council came back and said, I do want to be sure that you are indemnifying under your language for any challenges to whether we even have the right to give you this access, this median property. Remember, the county claims, or claimed, until Natalie found a case that I think they finally are convinced by, that the medians are owned by the property owners along the street all the way to the center of the median. And we don't believe that's correct, and I don't think they do anymore, but they just want to make sure that if some neighbor.
They
Yeah,
never
if some
did.
neighbor comes along and
They
says,
want
wait,
to.
we can't put a swing set there, that is on my property, because my property goes all the way to the middle of the median,
They-
that we will indemnify them for that, and we're agreeing to that.
All right, fine. They never did believe it anyway. They only said so to try and force the closest property owner to maintain sidewalks and trees.
Okay, so we have any more, thank you, Jonathan.
That's it,
Any
that's
more
it.
discussion?
I
Now
have
there were
questions.
Okay,
Okay, down in number 12, there's language about the utility survey, and then there's language in 16.
Yeah.
Which is, which
So
is it?
the one in 12 has been deleted.
Okay, and then so in 16, where it says the location and identification of utilities shall be completed, actually you're saying documented, right? You don't mean completed.
Underground service alert is,
Or-
it's just a service that if you're gonna be doing work
I
below
understand
ground
what it is,
level,
it just-
they notify all of the agencies that might
I-
have something under there to go do the markings.
I know how it works, yeah.
So,
okay.
what's
Yeah,
the
yeah.
issue here?
Well, it's not completed. The location and identification of utilities shall be completed. The process of locating and identifying utilities, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay, doesn't need to change if you're happy with it.
It's technically not correct, you're right, but.
Okay.
So on number 21, insurance, where it says on 90 days' notice, county can require GCSD to increase the insurance coverage as much as they want.
Yeah, I mean, we have $15 million of insurance.
I know, but, so we're just letting them say whatever we,
Yeah, that was one of the things we decided that we weren't gonna fight over. We have that kind of coverage. And, I mean, I guess I would say it would be subject to a reasonable standard. Every contract has an implied condition of reasonableness, so.
okay. Those were my questions that weren't, you already answered most of my questions. Thank you.
I mean, we did go back to them on that one. We didn't want what they had, but they said they wanted to keep it. We decided to pick our battles.
Yeah. Okay.
Any more discussion? Are we ready for a motion? Okay, would you like to make a motion?
What would so the agreement as we have it in the packet is not the final one? You have a newer one, but
I
we
do,
don't.
and we sent it yesterday, but it probably hasn't.
So-
Not on your board, I guess. No.
So the motion would be to,
Approve as amended.
Yeah.
okay.
And authorize the general manager to sign it and convey it to the county with the request that the Board of Supervisors approve it.
So moved.
Second.
Seconded, okay. Any more discussion?
I just want to say that this is very exciting. I was on the Parks Committee for, I don't know, a year and a half, and this hung up everything the Parks Committee is doing. So this is very good news to
Yes.
get this done.
We agree with you. Natalie came
Yeah.
to my office yesterday after the last call, and she said, I think it's time for a high five.
There you go, there you go.
Congratulations, well done.
And I want to
To you
thank
too.
Delia
I'm
for
just
chasing
saying.
this down for 6 months,
Yeah,
and
I know.
then Jonathan's crew for bringing it to fruition, and I think it's worth more than a high five.
Jonathan, when do you think this will come into effect?
We
There's
talked to
actually
them
some-
yesterday that we want to get it on their agenda as soon as possible. They couldn't tell us. how
This
soon.
has to go to the
The Board of
supervisors?
Supervisors has to approve it, yeah.
Okay, sure. I
Because
guess
it's real property.
we have not approved it yet.
Right.
No.
We have to vote, okay.
That's
so
why it's
ready
only
to
high
vote?
five.
There we go, okay, that's exciting, okay, and ready to vote? Okay, now all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Okay, it's unanimous, oh, yeah, thank you so much, it's great to have this going on. And I'm sure Pat Tierney's happy too, and Don Horst. Should we thank them too for all
It's
their
an
help?
asset.
Smells like progress.
There you go, thanks very much, okay, sure, okay. Now we're getting on to item 4. Consideration of amendment to franchise agreement with Ecology for the coast of solid waste and recycling services. Adoption of schedule of rates increases in fees and charges through 2022, subject to Proposition 218 and initiation of the Proposition 218 process.
Before we hear the staff report, I have a question. In the past, as in like every time, there's been a board committee to work with staff and the franchise company, and that wasn't done this time. But this was done US Congress style, where the whole thing was done behind the scenes and then brought to us at the last second for final approval.
Well, I think what happened was that Recology spent some time negotiating this with Monterra. Their contract is nearly identical to ours. They've got a few different provisions, but I don't know, I go US Congress style, since we're gonna consider the agreement now and not finally approve it till December, so rather than giving you a day to pass something, I'm giving you 2 months to take a look at it.
Okay, I guess
But I actually asked Delia, I said, did we form a committee? I don't remember doing it, so.
I think we talked about it.
But the agreement as presented is substantially the same as the previous one we approved 5 years ago. We've got to do a Prop 218 notice, which is now codified. It used to be a little bit up in the air, but basically you can, from a broad perspective, you can set a rate schedule for 5 years until you have to do another Prop 218 notice. The Prop 218 notice is a mailed notice to every ratepayer in the district saying, here's what's changing, here's what our rates are gonna be for the next 5 years, or a cap on them, so you can go below it and whatnot. And then you've got to redo that every 5 years. We've added a couple new services to the agreement, and we've got Chris Porter here from Recology who can explain that, but like I said, from a broad sense, this is basically the same agreement with a few modifications as you've seen the amendments. And Jonathan, you want to add anything, or?
Nope.
Okay, Chris, you want to
So
come up? Does anyone have any questions for me?
while
or
Chris is
more
approaching the
appropriately, Chris?
microphone, let me ask
I have
to
questions.
anybody who wants to try and answer this, is there any way to synchronize our contract with MWSD's, since we started at different times, they got out of sync, and it'd be convenient, let's say, to have them back in sync.
Well, they just passed theirs last month. we
So are they
on
gonna be on the same schedule
Yes.
then as we are?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Good.
All right, so anyone
Hi,
have any
I'm-
questions for, okay, sorry, go ahead. You can introduce it.
Hi, I'm Chris Porter Gabrielli, and I am the general manager for 33 years of Recology, previously Seacoast.
Longer than
So,
I've been on this board.
longer than Leonard's been on this board. So I've known Leonard from the very beginning. A couple of changes that we proposed in this new contract. We would like to give all the customers a 96-gallon wheeled cart for the green waste. So we'll give them the 96-gallon cart, and there's no charge to the district. It will not even be under the depreciation schedule. It's just something that we're bringing forward. And you would also be able to use one of your 30-gallon carts also. So that will give you 6 additional gallons every 2 weeks from what you're getting right now.
You said 30-gallon cart, but more or less everybody just has
30,
the
30.
traditional cans,
Right.
not carts.
Good
So,
night.
so is what you say apply
Can,
to
cart.
the, oh, okay,
Container,
all right, good.
container.
I have a concern about this. Green waste is heavy. And I know we have 4 barrels and we fill them up often. And the idea of taking 3 of those and putting them into one, it's gonna be really hard to manage.
We had some concerns in Montera. So what we did was we brought a cart there. And we let people use that. After that, there was no concern. But again, I will say the exact same thing I said in open session in Montera. If any customer has any type of problem using the 96-gallon cart, we will make an adjustment for them. Either they can stay with the service that they have now and use their cans, or we will work with them as far as maybe leaving the can farther up their driveway or whatever. I mean, we, again, have been servicing this district for years. We have very good working relationship with the people in the district. I mean, your garbage man has been the same guy that you've had for close to 20 years. He knows where everybody has, if for some reason they forget to put it out, oh, Mr. Smith forgot, and they get it, and so we have no problems doing that whatsoever. So that was one, and there's really been a lot of people that have come forward saying, oh my God, this is great, we're gonna get this cart, because they're having a problem dragging the cans to the curb. So, maybe some of the customers on the hills might have a little bit of a problem, and again, we will be happy to accommodate them. And once, we don't see these carts coming out, there's like a 2.5 month to 3 month lead time for the carts to be purchased. So I see these carts going out about March. So there's no point in putting them out in the rainy season, so around March, when things start to grow again, you're pulling weeds and stuff, that'll be a good time. And there'll be a lot of information going out ahead of time. And one of the things that it will say is, if you have a problem with this, contact us, and we will, have a list and have a route, and be able to notate that this customer is gonna be using something different, then we won't deliver the cart to them. So again, we have no problem doing individual service with whoever needs it. Also, going on from that, when we do deliver the carts, we will have stickers with the carts that say, "Take me." They'll be fluorescent, and the customers can then put them on their old carts, and we'll take those and recycle those, and again, there won't be any charge for that. So that'll be a nice cleanup there. Okay, so also in the rate scheduling, right now,
Before
there,
you get rates, I have one concern on the green waste. the 30-gallon is limited to 25 pounds? Really? I could throw one branch in that weighs 15 pounds.
What happens,
When I use them, which isn't very often, I'm sure I fill them up to 50 pounds or something, because I can barely move them.
and that's part of the problem? That is another part of the equation of going to the wheeled cart is?
Well, that's because I stomp it down to minimize the number of cans, which you won't be able to do with the large ones. You can't get in and stomp it down.
What's
You don't have to
happening?
answer that.
I know, I had a good
It's just
answer
me.
too.
If it's a good one.
I had a good answer.
Okay, truth in advertising, this is the second time today Chris has heard that from me.
Yes. That's true. I think it's the third. I have had two of my men, let's say over the last 6 years, get hurt because it's fine to drag the can to the curb, but my guy has to pick it up and do a deadlift into the back of the truck.
I carry it because I don't want to wear a hole at the bottom.
So the 96-gallon carts are able to be connected to the truck and the truck dumps them. Makes a big difference,
So that, to be clear, that means there's no weight limit at all. It's whatever we can manage to fit into the 96-gallon cart.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And again, there'll be the 96-gallon cart plus an additional 30-gallon cart, which gives you more weight or more gallons now that after this goes into effect than you have now. And the service in Granada differs a lot from Montera, Moss Beach. There's not a lot of people that put out all 4 carts in El Granada. So I think that this 96-gallon program is gonna service this district very well.
I tend to agree. You know, there will be a few exceptions, but I think, yeah, that's true.
So again, we've gotten a lot of calls from customers that are really looking forward to this change. And it will, again, will be well publicized both through the district, on the website, regular mail, email, different things. Second was the rate setting. Right now, the rates are 2 index-based years, 1 cost-based year. And Leonard and I had at length discussion about this, that the cost-based year at times goes up because there's more things taken into consideration. Well, the new extension limits any rate increase to 6%. It could never go over 6%. Let's say that we had a rate increase of 10%. What would happen was 4 of that percent would go over to the next year. So if the next year was 2, that year would be 5. But there-
There's a bullet item in Chuck's memo that says the cap for rate increases is increased from 5% to 6%.
6% is the cap.
But I thought you just said that currently there isn't a cap on the cost-based increase.
No, there isn't a cap at all currently. So,
How could it increase from 5 to 6 if there isn't one?
no, there is no cap.
Yeah, so
at
I don't
all.
understand this
So what is
bullet
the
item.
5?
I'd pretend I understand it, but Natalie actually wrote this, so I don't know where that comes from.
Because there was a few years ago,
Oh,
there
no,
was,
weren't you talking with Montera about, yeah, that's what it is.
it went from.
Montera started out as a
at
cap
5,
at
it went to 6.
5%. We were parroting Montera's language, so when Natalie was reviewing this, she looked at Montera's, they started at 5% during the negotiations and final board approval, they went to 6%. So that's the change. So
Okay.
And-
the negotiations started at 5 and went to 6.
And to give you a little history of that, how that happened was, to start out with, it was gonna be a cap of 5%, but made whole every 3 years with the cost-based calculation. Well, we put the cost-based calculation aside and just kept it straight across to 6%, no more than 6%. So even on the cost-based year, so Leonard can now exhale, because that means that there won't be any type of large increase.
Well,
But you could do 6% a year when we're having 2% inflation.
On the cost base.
Yeah.
Right, so what they provide on the back end, you can see in our memo, is the cost-based analysis. We actually, at one point in time, Barbara hired an expert in reviewing these things to see if it was reasonable, if you will. You know, we're looking at numbers that they're providing, so obviously, but, you know, they've been very honest with us in the past, and I don't think we've had anything egregious, so.
Well, I mean, actually, if you look at this adjustment, that if you get to the end, it's 3.1%, and the entire additional increase that's being requested is due to this other pass-through costs, which I was asking her about, of what they are, because they're not really explained at all.
which page are you on?
If you look at the end of the last page of the index-based rate adjustment calculation,
What I explained to Barbara
Page 3.
is that.
can I just
oh, I'm
tell
sorry,
them,
excuse
just
me.
let me tell them where we're looking at.
Okay.
So if you're looking at the right-hand page, see that $35,000 over there that's other pass-through costs? There are no costs for it this year, and next year there's gonna be $35,000, and that's what takes the increase from 3.1%, which it is if you calculate just the base cost, to 5.76%. So that, I was asking her, what exactly is that is appearing now and it never had before, and she was telling me what it is. So, but I would, it maybe should have been explained a little better.
And I think there was another document that did explain all of that. What that is, right now, there is something in the economy called the Chinese national sword. And what that is they are cutting off all imports of recycling. And they used to take all recycling, plastics 1 through 7, paper, cardboard, everything. There's new government now in China who feels that the United States is just sending their garbage and their waste to China, and then it's up to them to do with it whatever. And so they
Oh, I
are,
thought that's what they put into their factories to send the junk back here.
so what we did, Recology, is we signed a contract with a company in San Jose that they will be taking all our recycling. So we were fortunate to think ahead and be able to sign this contract, and we're getting paid $30 a ton for the product that we deliver there. So previously, we were not going to San Jose, so now we're gonna have 12 loads of recycling a day going to San Jose. And that is what that cost is, which we did not have, but it's a plus to us, again, to be able to still get paid. Where, right now, where we were bringing it, which is SBR in, San Carlos, if we were to go there right now, it would be a negative $50 a load.
Is that a transfer station?
Yes.
One thing that Chris didn't mention is that in the last few years, the bottom has fallen out of
Right.
the value of recycled materials, which apparently is one reason that pretty much all the recycling centers have shut down.
That is the reason why all,
I mean,
majority of
recycling
the.
collection centers.
Because the monies that were gleaned from operating those centers were used to operate the centers, but also for Cal Recycle out of Sacramento that monitors all the recycling programs and needs of the state.
So would it be fair to say that we now have a government agency that sucks up 100% of the revenue?
Yes.
Not 100%, but close. I know there's been much talk on next door lately about
Yep.
not being able to get the CRV back, and where's that money going to if the stores are still collecting it and there's no place for customers to get the money back.
Yeah, well, theoretically, that should then go to the pickup company.
And
but-
we have gotten nothing this year, and it's kind of a big question mark in the industry. What is going to happen?
So
if
basically,
we're-
this 35,000 that Barbara brought up is your costs of picking it up and taking it to San Jose.
It's our cost to transfer it to San Jose, truck costs, fuel, and manpower to bring it to San Jose, which is, again, going over the hill and going to San Jose is
12 trips a day?
12 trips. 12 trips a week.
Oh,
12 trips a week.
A week. Is that the landfill down at Kirby Canyon, goes all the way down there?
No. It's green waste recovery. It's right off the freeway. Nice facility, nice clean facility. So that's that additional cost. Also, there is I don't know whether you're all aware of this, there will be a 24-cent a gallon fuel increase starting November 1st for SB 1, and that's gonna hit everybody.
Oh, yeah.
And for trucking companies, that's gonna be a big number.
It's only 12 cents a day.
And that is for road repair.
We'll see.
Okay?
We'll
Thank
see,
you.
right.
Thank you.
Also, one of the things that we're asking for in the extension is to begin pickup at 6 a.m. And Leonard cannot speak to this because he's not up at that time. And doesn't
Actually, I was
He
this
may be
morning.
now.
No, he's not.
I happened to be this morning, and there's some combination of, I guess your newer trucks are quieter, plus maybe they're operating them more quietly, so, my
The
concern
traffic
may
is,
not-
I'm not telling anyone anything that we don't all know, that the traffic is horrendous. And it's, it just seems like within the last 2 years, it's gotten just awful. And, I mean, no one wants the garbage truck sitting on the Coast Highway when they're trying to get to school or wherever. And we also don't want to be running around in the neighborhoods when the kids are going to school. We'd really like to be kind of out of that area. And we do start in the commercial area, so that is the beginning of when we begin.
I wonder if there are complaints about the start time due to noise, would they come to you or to us? Who are people likely to call?
Yes.
Kind of call everybody. They call both of
It's
us,
like a
right?
lawsuit.
So if you get complaints about the start time and or the noise, could you put a one-liner in the monthly report?
You
One more
can't
question.
call.
Barbara's got one more.
One more. 10 years seems like a long time to
Yeah.
be extended.
Well, I was gonna explain after she kind of went through her details, I was gonna explain what we're looking to doing here, so. Chris, like Chris said, she's been here a long time doing this stuff, and what we're trying to do is lock in certainty for the 10-year.
In other words, until Chris retires.
Well, Chris will be long retired by then, so I'll still be here. So, no matter what, are you all familiar with Prop 218 and the noticing? So, when a government agency raises rates, they've had a recent court case that kind of expanded to a bunch of things. You've got to mail a notice to every ratepayer 45 days in advance. We hold our public hearing. If there is a 50% or more protest vote, which very rarely occurs, I've only known of 2 districts it's happened at, the process goes through, so.
Well, the county lost 2
Those are the 2 I
sanitation
know
district
of.
218s.
Because there
Oh,
were
okay.
600 and 400 home subdivisions, so. So what we do, we've got to go through, and if we approve this agreement, we've got to go through 218 process. So what we're looking for tonight is to pass this agreement in substantial form, direct staff to move ahead with the Prop 218 process. Assuming that passes in December, your board will go through final approval of this amendment to the agreement, as well as the rate schedule. We will have to do a Prop 218 process in 5 years, and if that doesn't go well or fails, or your board decides whatever, you know, we will have the ability not to extend the agreement, because obviously if 218 doesn't pass, we can't extend the agreement with the rate schedule that's in place.
I'd like to address one thing, that the services that this district receives are far exceed what, I mean, our neighbors next door who just signed a new contract, that some of their rates are going up 30%. And they have one.
You're talking about the ones that use the other company.
Yes. And one, I mean, they have one bulky item pickup, they don't have any of the drop-off days. We listen to what the customers ask us for. I mean, they asked us for individual shredding days, so we have, what we're going to do this coming year is we're going to have one of the shredding days on the quarterly day, so that everyone knows that and comes, you know, plans on coming, instead of having to make a special day during the month or the quarter to come to that. And we'll probably have two shredding days a year in El Granada and 2 in Montera. That's kind of the thought process right now. We're gonna see how the first one goes by doing it this different way, and if it's successful, then we're gonna go to the second one. But we also are, again, very involved in the community. We just did something in one of the schools in Montera, and we are working with El Granada School to do something there. In Montera, we built a greenhouse for them, an outdoor greenhouse. So we like to do environmental things to further the education of the community. So that is why I don't feel bad asking for this, because I know we've always lived up to everything that we've said we're gonna do. Delia just calls and says, hey, I need X, Y, and Z, and we do it. Delia and I are going to work on a presentation to come to the board in the next couple of months, about the beach cans. Because there seems to be a big problem, and the problem is not so much from the beach, but it's from people just coming along and dumping stuff there.
There was a suggestion, probably on Nextdoor, about just supplying bags and not cans, and you know, a bag dispenser with a sign that says "pack it in, pack it out." And in years past, there have been suggestions that putting collection, I'm not sure I agree with it, but I just want to mention it, that some people are convinced that putting cans out in public places for collection just makes the problem worse.
And that is 100% true. In the Pacific up here, we probably took out about 15 cans, because the fishermen would come and just bring all their waste from home and dump it. We audited, and we've audited these cans out at the beach here. And it's not beach garbage at all.
Well,
Because,
And sometimes, you know, I was just at my kid's soccer thing, and they had a bunch of cans there. Now, it's anecdotal, but people would not drop garbage on the ground if there was nothing near it, but they will fill the bin and then drop garbage near it, because there's a bin there. But, you know, they wouldn't just dump it there, but so, you
Yeah,
know, that's an interesting discussion topic
in-
that we've had previously.
Well, that has to do with, you know, pickup schedule and, you know, for certain holidays and stuff, Recology really needs to consider the holiday schedule and alter as necessary, for those specific days, increase the
For the-
pickup frequency.
For the beach,
Yeah.
what has happened though is we pick up always on Saturday. So the cans are completely empty. When we come on Monday, there's 2 or 3 tires there, old bikes, things like that, and that has been continual for the last
Well,
probably 6 months.
earlier this year, I spent 3 weeks in China, and they have, well, first of all, the cities I was in, even the old cities, are very, very clean. But they're seriously into public trash cans with 3 sections for, 2 recycling things and trash. But they all have very small openings, so that basically you're walking along with a cup in your hand, you can throw the cup in, and that's about it.
Well, that was kind of one of Delia's ideas, to look for different types.
Well, I definitely.
Cans and see what we could
I'll try to remember
do.
to send Delia the photo. I actually took a photo of a garbage can in China. Hey, when I was
Remind me not to look at your vacation
when I was in when I was in Prague, I took a picture of a manhole cover because it had a nice castle.
There you go.
Had a nice castle on it.
I have hundreds
I
of those.
think Chris was saying he's willing to work with us, and
Yeah.
whatever the public desires, she'll work with us, whether we want to take
You'll
some
have to look at
aware
those
before we're out there.
pictures.
we'll
Yeah,
work.
exactly.
Yeah.
And so, Chris, do you think that there would be any value in the district providing packet in, packet out trash bags that obviously don't fit in the containers we're maybe gonna be considering?
That is a new idea that no one's ever really brought to me before, so maybe we'll.
Like Delia said,
We'll
we've
talk
worked
about that
together
in our
well with
report.
them on this kind of stuff, and when we need things, they're very
So
responsive.
maybe
to our
Delia
stuff.
could just set up a pilot someplace and try and,
Yeah.
try and evaluate whether it works or not.
Well, that's what we talked about doing, maybe take some cans away from this area, see what happens, so.
And just leave, or you're saying, so just leave the bag, or bring, or
It's
they
almost
should
like
take
doggy
the bag
waste
home?
bags, where you just
Yeah.
have a dispenser and you can pull it out, so.
So instead of having a can, just have the bag there, so then the guy goes by and just picks up all the bags?
No. People are supposed to take it with them back home.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay.
That's what
I
packet
don't
in,
see that
packet out.
happening.
And that's why I say,
Bagged up
when
and
we,
left on the beach.
yeah, when we work with, I'm just gonna call them Seacoast, when we work with Recology on this stuff, that's what they're willing to do for us, try that out, we don't have to, quantify it in an agreement.
Right, yeah.
We'll just do whatever we need to do.
So I have a question on one thing and then a comment somewhere else. I guess, existing 2015 agreement, on page 2 in the yellow highlighted section 2.03, the purchase price for such container shall equal the unamortized bracket depreciated bracket value. What? I don't know what that sentence means. Around 6 lines from the
Where is
bottom,
What section are you at?
2.03.
203?
Yeah, it's down about 2/3 of the way down.
Oh,
I don't understand amortized bracket depreciated bracket value of the acquisition cost. Huh? Explain.
Amortized and that's kind of
Came from
the same thing, amortized or
How's that?
depreciate, amortized.
But it says
and dep-
unamortized, so I don't know what this means in context of unamortized.
well, we've already bought these, though, right?
Yeah, this is the existing agreement.
Yeah, this is the existing agreement.
Right.
This
Yes,
is in the
but-
past.
I have a question on that. Why does the last page of the existing agreement talk about Pacifica?
Talk about what?
It's all about, in section 6.02A down at the bottom, it's all about, if they're applying for a rate increase, it has to have supporting documentation, including without limitation, any report if publicly available prepared by the city of Pacifica's rate consultant regarding maximum rates in the city of Pacifica for such rate year.
That's because somebody copied a contract and forgot to edit all the occurrences.
We promise to have a very clean copy for the final.
You don't know how many times we see this thing in government work.
But, and correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, but part of this was actually, the city of Pacifica hired an auditor, if you will, kind of like the guy I was telling you about that we hired and went through all the things. And we're
Yes.
inextricably linked because they're using some of the same carts and whatnot up on the coast side from Pacifica.
So we are looking at.
So we actually did, at the time, look at the city of Pacifica's audited, I'll
Yes.
call it audited financials.
But Granada
All right, so they
gets,
have to turn a report, in the report from Pacifica if it's publicly available as part of their rate increase package. Okay,
no,
that
we,
is, that makes
but
sense.
we give Granada every year, which it's in December of every year, an independently audited financial statement. So that is on file on a yearly basis, strictly for Granada.
So the
Thanks.
comment I have is on,
I don't know about unamortized.
I figure out where I am here. The page title is the Granada Community Services District Index-Based Rate Adjustment Calculation for 2018. And it's page 2 of 3, so at the bottom there's franchise fees. I wonder if staff has a good feel for how much of the district's time, between general manager, assistant manager, council, do we really spend that much administering the contract? Because franchise fee in some sense is just a secret tax, and I don't think we should have the rates include a franchise fee that does anything more than cover our actual costs. So does it
Can I
seem
answer
like that's
that?
what our
Sure.
costs are?
Part of the franchise fees in this district are used for environmental things, such as the mutt mitts. That is a big item that
Okay.
not too many other
Yeah.
people have. So that money is used for environmental purposes.
Okay, let me address the question from the other direction then. Are we making a profit on the franchise fee, or are we breaking even?
That's a relatively,
You're breaking-
yeah, it's a
probably
relatively
breaking even.
unanswerable question, because we've got, kinda got the same issues down in my districts down south. We have a landscape district where, we do security services, which is a passive service. But you've got, these costs
Okay,
here
well,
and whatnot.
if you think it's
It's close
reasonably
enough,
close.
and
all right,
certainly we
yeah.
are way, way, way on the low side
Right.
of what most people use franchise fees as the money makers, cities and
Well,
whatnot.
that's what I said, Pacifica in particular, it's
Yeah.
just a secret
Well,
tax.
Pacifica does,
Half Moon
Half Moon
Bay
Bay.
is 14%.
Right, and it just goes to
So
the general fund. and
What's
it's
this
just
percent?
slush money.
True.
So,
Okay, wow, that's a rather big difference.
right,
Yeah.
so, if we're plus or minus $5,000 as a percentage of this contract, I mean, like I said, it's tough to quantify that.
Yeah, well, as long as,
I think it's fair.
as long as it's not 50%
Yeah,
profit or
it's not.
something.
No.
Okay.
So again, so what we're looking for your board is approval and concept of this amendment and the agreement associated with it, and direct staff to go ahead with the Prop 218 process.
Are we taking a vote on it or discussing
Yeah,
any
we're not,
major things?
it's not final approval, because again, we have to do that at our December 14th meeting.
So my only issue I think raised was the 10 years, what the, does seem like a long time, so what are the, what is the potential to do, 5 years or, even 7 years? I think getting out of 10 is, I know years go by pretty quick, so, I could see, 5 years will go by fast, but I think 10 years seems like quite a bit, so I'm just wondering what the, what is the minimum that we could negotiate, and if we have to be committed to a 10-year, is there anything on the table in terms of maybe we stay with a 5% cap instead of a 6% cap if we're gonna go out that far? So those are my two.
I mean,
only
that's
two
obviously your
comments.
board's discretion, whether we go
Yeah.
5 or 10 years, and we had lengthy discussions about it, because 10 years is a little longer. I think what this does is build in, don't know what the word I'm looking for, build in, what the costs are gonna be.
Stabilization.
Stabilization, thank you. Looking out, when we've compared Recology's rates in the past to Half Moon Bay, the last time we did this 3 years ago, we did a San Mateo countywide survey, and we were by far the lowest rates in the area. Sometimes it's a little apples to oranges, but for the most part, our rates and the college's rates were the lowest. So
And we do have an out clause at 5, right?
if it doesn't pass the 218 process, that's our out clause. We don't have a true, can't just wake up and say we don't want to extend it. So it is tied to the 218 process.
So there would have to be a protest from the community.
There would have to be a protest hearing. You know, we've been doing this for a long time. People seem happy with Recology. You know, again, anecdotally, I think they're run a little bit more. They're a big company now, but they came from smaller roots, and I think they provide a lot of good customer service. It's obviously a concern because 10 years is longer than 5 years, but, you know.
But maybe that is the solution, is to give us a true option at 5 years, so we have a 5-year and then a 5-year
Well,
option.
maybe Chris can talk
potentially. I don't know.
about this, but part of the things we talked about with the 96-gallon
Right.
cans, that's a 200,000 plus investment by Recology that they're not passing on to us, that they would like to amortize over 10 years versus 5 years, because if they're gonna do it for 5 years, then that would be something they would probably negotiate out, because she and I talked about that they're not gonna invest $250,000 in carts and have us, you know, chop off the agreement in 5 years. So I think it provides, and Leonard used a good word, rate stabilization, especially with all this other stuff happening. You know, prices seem to be jumping. This, you know, we have a cap on what we'll have for 10 years. That's got some value, but again, that's your board's, you know, discretion.
I'm okay with it, having heard all the explanations and so forth.
And David, the 6%, that's the max. Doesn't have to be 6%. You know, it's, when we come forward, we present application to Chuck and Delia on a yearly basis. Some years it's a negative. So it just depends on what the costs are for that year. You know, now that this transportation is gonna become part of our routine, once we, you know, start getting these revenues and stuff, that may not be a large factor next year whatsoever.
So by the way, you don't have any way to transfer to a bigger truck at your,
Not right now, that's something that I'm looking into, but,
Because if you
you know.
transfer to a bigger truck and drive one bigger truck down there,
I know, but that's a pretty big investment.
yeah, true.
So for the tonnage that is in this area, that would be a real large investment. So, but I'm looking at a few different other options. But again, I think another important factor is that 80% of my workforce live on the coast side also. So we're part of the community. All my management people live on the coast side. So we know what is needed here and how to work with the community.
So what kind of
What do you need?
action
You need a
does this
motion?
board
Yeah,
need?
we need a motion. So the motion would be to approve the amendment to the franchise agreement conceptually, along with the
Preliminary.
preliminarily, along with the adoption of the scheduled rate
Preliminary.
increases in fees and charges through 2022, subject to Proposition 218 process, and direct staff to initiate the Prop 218 process. And then we will be looking for final approval of all this at our December 14th meeting where we'll hold a special. public
So
hearing.
moved.
Second.
Okay, second. So any more discussion? Okay. Any more discussion? No, okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, this passed, yeah,
All right.
okay. Thank you very much, Chris.
Thank you, Chris.
Who do I make that check out to?
I'll
Granada?
talk to you about that later.
Okay, you'll tell me.
Thank you.
It's DUFF.
There's no E between
I'm
the
not
F
making
and Y.
Chris, thank you very
I'll
much
give
for
you a
coming.
cut
We
then.
appreciate
Yeah,
all
thank you,
your
Chris.
generosity. Okay.
I have a quick question.
Can we start?
Okay.
You ready? Here you go. Okay. Can we start, maybe, we'll start off with item 5 here. Consideration of amendment for GCSD fiscal year 2017-18 budget for SAM IPS force main repair and replacement of segment 1, 2, and 3, and associated resolution.
Okay, so at the last SAM board meeting, I'll give you a little bit of background. As part of these early settlement talks with Half Moon Bay and their lawsuit against ourselves, San Montero, we eventually gained approval of a $1.5 million repair project on the.
I thought it was 1.5 was the budget for IPS repair.
Yeah, okay, it was a $1.5 million budget repair of the IPS, so we got
It's under
that.
protest.
Yeah, under protest, from Half Moon Bay, but we did get approval. SAM staff subsequently went out to bid. They divided the construction into 3 segments, 1, 2, and 3. They bid segments 1 and 3 as one package, and they had segment 2 was what they call an alternate package. So they bid, each contractor bid the packages separately. The bids came in a little bit higher than expected for segments 1 and 3. The alternate bid came in I think slightly under $600,000. It was a little bit of a surprise at the SAM board meeting when this came in front of the SAM board for approval of the project. Not only did they approve segments 1 and 3, they also approved segment 2 for construction. So I think.
And that was at Half Moon Bay's suggestion. And some of us looked at each other and almost fell out of our chairs.
What's going on here?
That is the good news, though. No matter who made the suggestion, all 3 member agencies at the SAM board meeting approved moving forward with this needed repair.
So the bid amounts are on page 2 of the SAM memo that follows Chuck's memo. And so the interesting thing is that the first staff recommendation was to approve the bid, award the project to KJ Woods because they had the lowest bid for segments 1 and 3, but then when Half Moon Bay said, well, let's include segment 2 this time around because costs only go up in the future and we get a better cost per foot by doing it now and putting this in now. That changed it so that we went with
Bay Pacific.
Bay Pacific because their total bid in the last column is lower for all 3 segments, even though KJ Woods for segments 1 and 3 had the lowest bid.
So your figure here should be 445.
Where did I get 540? Oh, I picked KJ Woods.
Yeah.
You're right. Thank you.
So we're gonna change the numbers back here.
No, that won't change what we owe, though.
Yeah.
So I got the part that we owe right. So
So that's already been put out to bid, I think. Kind of lost track here.
what?
Beverly sent out a press release about this, so I think that we're now in the advertising for bids stage.
No, that was they advertised for bids, they received these bids, so now they're in the bid approval
Oh.
stage.
Yeah.
Wait a second, oh yeah, okay, so
So what
I'm getting mixed up here on
Beverly,
something
the
else.
general manager at SAM, is asking us for is the additional monies to bring our, it's about $180,000 in additional funds over and above our original IPS repair budget to proceed with this project. I think we all agree it's a good project, so I would recommend to your board that
Now,
we approve the amendment to our budget. Let Sam know that we've done so.
And at the SAM meeting, some quick calculations by various people, it sounds like SAM will save at least $150,000 by going with this, all 3 segments at once.
Yeah.
So,
now the motion at SAM was to approve going with segments 1, 2, and 3 for the higher amount, funding the excess. Now, the SAM board at that time did not have approval of the member agencies for the higher amount in terms of annual assessments. So we voted to fund the excess out of SAM's capital emergency reserve, or whatever it's called, and go to each of the member agencies and ask them to put in that extra amount and request that they fund it all within the 3 months from that meeting. And we had confidence that the Granada and Montero boards would approve it because Granada, at least, I'm less clear on what Montero did, but Granada approved an alternate budget at the time that had an extra 500,000 in it, so we figured there shouldn't be any problem getting this board to approve this approach here and fund the excess at this time. So you have no problem with the accelerated payments?
Absolutely none. I think this is a great thing that we're getting this project done. so.
Yes.
So we're looking for a motion to approve the amendment to our GCSD budget and increase the SAM IPS repair line item, approximately $180,000.
So moved.
Second.
Any more discussion? Okay.
Good news.
Very good
Yes,
news.
it is.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 Everybody opposed? Okay, so unanimous.
Did you?
Leonard, and an important thing about this is that
Yes.
the Regional Water Quality Board will now see that SAM is jumping on fixing the worst parts of the IPS right now.
So what changed, though? When we originally passed our budget, I was the only one outspoken that we needed to approve more money to take this into account, and everyone was against me.
No, oh no, this board, I believe unanimously approved the alternate budget of the additional.
Well, I voted
The issue-
against it.
This-
I-
No,
yeah.
David, the issue you had was we didn't have a line
We didn't take
item.
into account the fact that this happened, and it's gonna, because it happened, it's either gonna continue to happen, or we need to address it at some point. I mean, same thing going back to the grand jury report, that all talked about all of this, we got some of the oldest aging pipelines in the whole entire county, and everyone wanted to say, no, it's not an issue, and argue about facts, so it's just interesting that now it takes something like this to happen, in the environment to be destroyed, to say what we already known.
No,
What
no.
we already should have known.
The-
Because I'm no expert, but
The board-
I was looking at reports from the grand jury
Yeah,
that predicted all of this was gonna happen if we didn't do anything about it.
Well, I'm not gonna speak to the grand jury report. The board did approve.
I mean, I was ahead of
The board
these
did
major
approve the
spills.
$1.5 million IPS repair project as part of our budget.
Mhm.
What you objected to in the budget was that we didn't have a budget line item for the potential fine from the regional board.
Potential fines, or not just fines, or additional expenditures that go towards addressing, so we don't have future fines. That
Well, you're-
And so the reasons for both of those was there was no figure to plug in.
Can
We
we,
can't
But we
predict-
knew there
we
was
can't-
something,
I
though.
could predict the cost of the IPS repair, well, I
Yeah.
couldn't, Sam gave it to us. But the fines are,
Yeah.
okay, can we not relitigate this under this agenda item?
Okay, so thank you. Anyway, ready to move ahead here? Item 6.
They did vote, right?
So now we have consideration
No,
of
that we
district,
voted.
oh, sorry?
you sure?
Yeah, we did.
We all say aye?
I thought I voted.
Yeah.
No, you're
Yeah, I
a voter,
remember.
right? Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
We did, thank you.
I'm
So we
sorry.
had the,
Getting tired.
let's consider, item 6, consideration of District Sewer Authority Mid-Coast Side Representatives Report. So, Leonard and Matthew.
Well, I think we've just about reported on the SAM meeting. The only other thing is the surge tank at the Portola Pump Station, which has apparently been out of service for quite a number of years, which was a shock to the SAM board, because that surge tank being out of service was probably a contributing factor to,
No,
you don't think so?
Not to anything.
no.
Well, in any case, the statement is that we need to get the surge tank back into service before we complete the IPS repairs. So that's being done,
So that was part of the $1.52
right?
million CIP from SAM, is
Right.
the IPS repair, the surge tank, and one other small item.
Oh,
So
we-
I think they approved both, Leonard?
Yeah, we passed a separate budget, wasn't that what, 78,000 for the surge tank?
Yeah,
Well,
but
it's
the
much
both were
higher
within
than the
the
number shown
budgetary
here.
amounts.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember the number, but it's much higher than the number that's shown somewhere in here.
It was within the budget though.
Yeah, so I don't know that there's anything else worth reporting on here. If you want to see really entertaining stuff, watch the discussion of increasing the contract funding limit for council.
Yeah, it says here in there, 30,000.
Yes.
I think,
So they had 3 bids and they were wildly divergent. The
Yeah,
other
well,
two were
what
much
comes
higher.
to mind is like 59,000. I don't know what that 30,000 number is.
Because the other 2 bids were higher, that's why. I remember seeing them. You always wonder why they're so different.
Well, when you have one bid that's much lower than all the rest of them,
That's what I mean.
you always have to wonder if they knew what they were doing.
yeah.
So are we ready to go on? Thank you for that, thank you for the reports. Okay, so now we go on to the consent agenda. So we have item.
I want to hold item 7.
Item
warrants.
7. So then we have to do item 7.
Oh, actually, technical correction on the minutes, the adjourn to closed session, shouldn't it be after?
Just cross this out.
Yeah.
No, it's already here.
Oh, yeah, okay, there's an excess adjourn to closed session in the minutes.
Yeah, okay.
Right you are.
So now we're only talking items 7, we're doing 7, okay, so you want to do consent then for, do you want to do a revise 7, or what do you want to do?
I think, well, all right, let me try this. I move approval of the consent agenda, item 7, September 21st minutes with the minor technical correction. Item 9, August 2017 financial statements. Item 10, approval of assessment district distribution number 4-17/18.
See you in a second then.
Oh, se-
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, okay. Any opposed? Okay, so we can move ahead.
Okay, item 8, warrants. So the, yeah, the other legal fees item here, that's the special counsel that Jonathan
Regional Water
mentioned?
Quality Control Board,
This?
where is it?
Yeah, okay, I just didn't recognize the name.
Yeah,
And
me
then,
too.
So McSimmons has done the second one down.
yeah, then there's a check here to David Seaton for the 9/21/17 board meeting, which he was not at.
Oh, you're
If you
correct.
page back a few pages and read the minutes.
Oh, you're right. Okay, we'll have to adjust that.
Was that issued yet?
10/19, yeah. We can just, did she give it to you?
You know, I don't look at the.
Oh, it's probably not signed yet.
Yeah, so
Alright.
just make sure she, because I think the last one I got was from the month before, that's what I'm
Okay.
asking, because that one was obviously
Okay,
patched.
and on Pacifica TV, it says board meeting and fee, and it's $375. I thought we were paying $250 a month, so what's the end fee?
I don't know, I'll have to check into that, Larry.
It's not here.
We will check that and let you know.
All right, so I'm
Judy is back, maybe Judy knows.
I'm sorry.
what's the end fee on the payment to Pacifica?
TV.
Oh, it was a fee for showing up at the park meeting that didn't take place here.
I still want to know what happened to the video of that.
Well, they were
They
sent
moved.
home, and I'm still trying to get a copy of the private one that was taken, but I haven't had a chance to see if anybody responded to my email yet, because I've been out. But I'll let you know tomorrow.
All right, I move approval of the October warrants, and I'm not going to read the amount because we need to remove number 6665.
Okay.
Second that?
Oh, second.
Second, okay.
Yeah. so.
Any more discussion? Okay, so all in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Okay, so we are through the consent agenda. now we go on to item 11, committee reports.
Oh, we already had the committee report.
Yeah.
Do you want anything else?
Yeah, no, just that, I think in terms of, I think, the way it happened, there's a lot of people upset and, expressing a lot of emotion, but I think that's kind of a good thing in terms of you got some good discussion and ideas and probably people talking that probably otherwise wouldn't have said anything. Looking at some of the complaints and I spoke as people were asking me questions. I took some of the heat in terms of people being upset and stuff, just by being there. But I think, some of the things that got brought up that I think that could address some of the concerns. Number one, temporarily holding, for a period of time, holding a once a month parks only meeting so that we could gain progress on some of these things. And so I think, not indefinitely, but I think just for a period of time, just a couple months, we hold the park seat. We don't talk about sewer or anything else, just because I think we'll get those big crowds and we'll get some of those people that and move some of these things forward. I think, other than that, like, one of the ideas that I think could also help is like, and I know sometimes government starts getting out of control and stuff, but I look at that parks committee as kind of a general, they're kind of doing some of the general planning and stuff. So we had like 6 or 7 experts in pump tracks that were just like, one guy had done literally been involved in hundreds of different, he was showing me pictures on his phone, like multiple ones that he's involved with right now. Kind of the idea of like, if we're serious about that we could form a more, I don't know about the formality of it, but some type of committee that, I could see like a pump track committee that would report to the parks committee or whatever you want to call it, in terms of subcommittee that, and maybe it's even less formal than that in terms of just garnering some of their ideas and stuff. And, they did get some of the contact information from some of those people, but like I said, one guy in particular that had done a bunch of them and was, lives in Pacifica and willing to donate his time and, even he talked about maybe coming and doing a presentation. So one of the things that he had brought up that was really interesting to even me is that, the idea, especially lately, the pump tracks aren't really just for kids. That's kind of a misconception. Like even in the meeting, the idea was that when it first got brought up, we're going to do a pump track target market of like 5 years old to 11 or something, I think was what Professor Tierney was talking about. And one of the immediate things that kind of had gotten brought up is something like that could get built in literally a weekend with some of these people. The more, they pointed to some case studies, it's more of the advanced ones that you're seeing people, like he showed me a video, he has this client who's, I think in his mid-70s, who uses it every single day and says it saved his life in terms of the amount of exercise that he gets from it. And so it was interesting to see just kind of the, even my perception of it. I thought of pump tracks as kind of something a bunch of little kids would do. And then after him showing me the videos that he had and the pictures and everything else, by the end of it, I was ready to go and buy a bike. And looking at something like that you can do every single day just as part of your 30 minutes of cardiovascular exercise. So I think just that perspective in terms of that, if we do it, that you could do it the right way and kind of build it up to a whole demographic where I think everyone's head, even on the Parks Committee, is more talking about if we do a pump track, it's going to be more geared towards younger kids. And so, I think maybe we should reach out to the one guy. I think he could do an interesting presentation in terms of getting us caught up to speed on some of the differences and some of the good ones and bad ones. So I think, just in general, I think, it's clear to me, I think with these medians and with Corey Park and the county, some of their plans, just kind of getting together with them as well in terms of what, I think that's kind of the key is in terms of they're moving forward with these master plans. Now this medians, we have these ideas. At some point we have to come together and start the cooperation process. Otherwise, we're going to be planning overlapping projects potentially. So I think just increasing the coordination with the county in terms of that.
If you want things to go faster, increasing the coordination with the county is not the solution.
Yeah, potentially, but I think, at the same time, they're starting to get their mind made up in terms of you go to their planning meetings and you could see kind of where the direction they're headed, the areas that they're targeting for certain things. So I don't know. I mean, I wish I hope the video does surfaces, because there really was a lot of good ideas from different people, that were offering like really expert knowledge that I feel like in the past, our board kind of just put off because we didn't know the answer to. And, you know, a lot of these people had some good expert knowledge that I think we need to tap into, so. So yeah, that was that on that. So yeah, I think at some point we should look into, you know, as a starting point, offering more, a period of time with the parks focus meetings. I don't know I know we've talked about it before as a board, multiple different times at different points. I just feel like just to, we just need some of that momentum just to carry us to a certain
You're being
point.
repetitive.
Okay,
It's late.
we understand, yeah, thank you.
Okay, so yeah, but I'm being repetitive in terms of everything I just said, to me, that's the main thing in terms of how do we, is that something that we'd like to do, we could put on the agenda next month and vote on? In
We
terms
can,
of if
we
wanna-
can, they can send around an email gauging all
Yeah.
your interest in possibly scheduling, if
Right.
everyone's interested in doing, we had talked about that in the past.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Okay,
Because all it is a special meeting, really. It's
Yeah.
not, you know, it's a special meeting to discuss parks, really.
yeah,
Right.
but I think the idea being that was one of the things that there is a lot of confusion in terms of what's our role, what's the county's role, all that, and then when are our meetings, special meetings, all that. I think the idea being that if we have a series of meetings planned out, and they're special meetings, but saying every month for 6 months or every other month for, you know, that we'll get that kind of continued support of people knowing that instead of a, you know,
All
2
right,
weeks
you made your
notice.
So
point.
we'll send,
Yeah,
we'll send
yeah.
around
Go ahead.
an-
Thank-
an
thank you,
email
David.
to
Yeah.
Thank you,
gauging.
Dave. Okay.
Now, the other committee, which the minutes refer to, or the agenda for the last meeting refers to as the PAC Oversight Committee. The ad hoc committee has not met. I understand we're still hoping to get more applications
Yes,
for.
I'll give you an update on that.
Okay. Any more committees or reports?
So the other one would be with California Special Districts Association. So we met on Tuesday, October 3rd. You know, I feel like it was, you know, pretty informal meeting in terms of everything going on. The main thing that happened is we took a vote to become a fully affiliated CSDA chapter. So in the past, we were just basically like, you know, just, you know, we just were affiliated with them as a sponsor, but weren't fully affiliated. The only difference, I think, outside of the political issues potentially of do we agree with what they say on certain issues or anything, is that we do have to carry around a $500 a year insurance policy separately. So I think like our budget is only, you know, in reserves is $1,800. So that's something that potentially, you know, is gonna be a big dent in the budget, because I guess they haven't even spent money in, you know, in years. One of the things that was interesting is we could have that full amount waived if each board general manager signs off on basically a waiver, basically saying, you know, essentially, I think it's somewhere along the lines is that if there's some type of liability issue, that their board's insurance policy would cover that. That's kind of the preferred, you know, thing that we should do. The reality was that, you know, what was talked about is it would basically be impossible to get 22 signatures, the amount of times that
Right.
he doesn't get feedback from other people. So my recommendation is, okay, let's do it, let's get the insurance policy, but within a year, try to collect those 22 signatures. So that was something they said they were gonna try to do, you know,
Okay.
we'll get that to you at some point, and hopefully all the other agencies participate in that. Other than that, the main discussion was selection of appointing a LAFCO Special District Alternative Member. So that will be taking place at the February 6th meeting. So that's upcoming.
That's not something the chapter does, that's the board presidents of all the special districts. It's a
Yeah.
It's a separate meeting.
Yeah,
So Jim, you'll need to watch for.
Well, we'll
actually,
send
it'll
it,
be
we'll
in-
get it.
Yeah,
on
you'll
the
be
next
getting
one,
something.
we'll
It'll be
send
next
it
year's
out.
board president.
Yeah. So that's gonna take place on February
Track
6th.
of February,
Yeah.
new president.
Okay, moving right along.
Moving along.
As the clock
Any,
approaches 10
any more
o'clock.
committee reports? Okay, so any, attorney's report.
No report.
Okay, thank you, Jonathan. Any general manager's report?
Nothing further?
Okay, thank you, Jack. Administrative staff report.
And nothing further to report.
Okay, thank you,
I'll,
Diego.
I'll mention for our viewing audience that there are applications for, from Big Wave and Coastside Fire Protection District for the El Granada Fire Station replacement.
Okay, thank you. And the last one is engineer's report?
As John Rayner points out in his engineer's report, there's a hiccup in the temporary bypass over the Meteor Creek Bridge. They can't find their electrical pole box, so they're in search of.
It was anything like they couldn't find a 16-inch or 24-inch gas main in San Bruno?
They usually find it when they hit it. But, so anyway, hopefully
Wow.
they'll find it and move ahead with that.
Okay.
There's
Okay.
There's one guy who knows where it is, and he was on vacation.
And what's the word he used, knowable or something?
Yeah,
And we have future agenda items.
yeah. I love it.
So we have one about the parks. Anything else you want to discuss regarding?
I think it is worth agendizing
Oh,
Oh,
the parks, having some special meetings just for Parks and Rec. And I'd also like to see a future agenda item about at least considering moving our banking
oh,
business.
that's right, you mentioned that.
and I was gonna tell you that, Matthew, I apologize. That started
Right.
off on the draft agenda and
Right, I
it
saw
drifted off at some
I saw
point in
that.
time. And I was supposed to call you
Right.
and we didn't get time with all the ecology stuff, so we didn't forget about
I
you.
know, and
So,
I saw
I
it.
would probably
Yeah,
talk with Billy offline
Okay.
first to discuss that.
Okay, thank you, Chuck.
We
Thank you,
obviously
man.
didn't forget about you eventually.
Okay, so we are done? Okay, we are done now.
All
Okay.
right.
Thank you, everybody, for attending. The meeting's adjourned.
Thank you, Jim.
So the